Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tipsters with Melissa Morgan.
Hola!
Today, talking about Humboldt County, California, Murder Mountain, and the Cannabis Underground with Vicki Joseph, sister of Southern California missing person Jeff Joseph. You've got a tip for Melissa on a missing persons case or any other mystery? Tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host, conversating irregardless of any supposedly misunderestimated agreeance or disagreeance, Melissa Morgan.
Mo Cowbell. Producer Mark, was that all of the words you hate altogether?
Pretty much.
Yeah. I realize that I think most people on podcasts say supposedly, and they probably say supposedly, but it just is, they say that supposedly is my big, yeah. I know how much you love agreeance.
I hate agreeance.
Yeah.
That's the one that bothers me the most.
Yeah, supposedly bothers me, and agreeance bothers you. I love that. I love that you listed all those words at the beginning.
Right.
So, and that's why I said Mo Cowbell, because I was trying to fit into the zeitgeist of what you're.
Very nice.
Yeah,
well done on the fly.
Trying to smell what you were cooking.
You did a good job.
Fucked up wordery.
Right.
Fucked up wordery. So Mo Cowbell would be my stripper name.
I see.
Mo, short for Maureen. I'm kidding. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So we end April with an interview with Vicki Joseph, who Mark just sweetly said should have her own radio show because her voice is beautiful and she is such a great spokesperson. And I think when you hear this interview and the story of her brother who's missing, you're going to agree. You're going to be in agreement with us that she is not even supposedly perfect. She is truly a fantastic spokesperson for her family and for Jeff. And this whole environment of Northern California and Humboldt County is such a mystery to me. Not just the mystery of all of the people that are missing or that have even been murdered over the marijuana industry or somebody crossing a property line and getting shot. It's bizarre to me that this still exists in 2019.
It's a real world unto itself.
It really is. And it's shocking when at first you think, well, what people are talking about can't be true. But there are too many people with missing family members that can tell you that it's all true. So we hope you will listen closely to this interview with Vicki Joseph because it is a very fascinating, haunting story, and I hope it never happens to anyone you know or love. But if you have any information, please contact the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, which we will leave at the end of the episode and in the show notes. You can always call us anonymously at 832-TIPSTER, 832-847-7837. You can email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. There's a Facebook page. For Jeff Joseph, you'll be able to find all the information you need. If you have any information, please tell someone. It's too important to keep to yourself. So we're really happy to have a guest today that is an amazing sister who is holding out the mantle for her missing brother, and that's Vicki Joseph. And her brother, Jeff Joseph, went missing in June of 2014. Hi, Vicki. Welcome to Just the Tipsters.
Hi. How are you? I
am hanging in there, and I know you're hanging in there considering everything that you've been through. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And when a family member goes missing, and a family member who helped you take care of your mom, and you two were so completely in sync, it's got to feel like you're missing a major limb in your body somewhere. Yeah. So we know that Jeff isn't the only person missing from Humboldt County, and this was brought to my attention by our mutual friend Carrie, who said, Vicky's brother Jeff is missing. Would you consider talking to her for the podcast? And I said, absolutely. And that was before the documentary Murder Mountain came out. Now, Murder Mountain, the name is a little bit erroneous because that was actually given to Humboldt County, the Emerald Triangle, decades ago because of a weird serial killer. But it's much more prevalent now. And I was just stunned and shocked watching the documentary, the sheer number of people that are missing, potentially no longer with us, but definitely a large number of people missing from an area that is a low population. I mean, I believe law enforcement said they have a missing and murdered rate of a city as large as like Detroit, which is insane to me, that this place that just looks like rolling hills and private people, and it doesn't look foreboding. But
it's a beautiful rural looking, like you're out in the country, in the mountains. It is beautiful town,
and it's also, I don't even know any other way to describe it except it just appears to be the 2019 version of the fucking Wild West.
You're absolutely correct.
Like,
it's beautiful and eerie and creepy.
Beautiful and dangerous. And I mean, I can't even explain it, but even just watching video footage, you're like, this is beautiful, and yet it's silently creepy. I can't explain it. But so let's talk about Jeff, because I have to say, when looking at people that are missing, sometimes you get a feeling, you look at their picture and you think, oh, that's a lovely posed photo, or, oh, you can tell something about this person through their eyes. But you just look at Jeff and what I see is like this open soul and free spirit. Like, he just looks like the guy you'd want to be your friend.
Yep. And he was everyone's friend.
I can see it. You can see it. So you two had a difficult childhood, and yet it probably brought you together. You're very bonded, and he took things that may have been a difficulty in his young life and turned them into a creative, forward-thinking mindset. So in my mind, he was way ahead of his time. He was way ahead of his time in the fact that at a very young age, he opens up a hemp clothing store in Portland. Is that
correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
So he opens this hemp clothing store, and then his free spirit does it bring him back to California?
Yes, it did.
And then he started Organica.
No, not initially. He opened another hemp clothing store.
Okay.
In the late 90s. And
way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
He was trying to tell us. We didn't even know what hemp was.
Right.
It wasn't a big thing, nor was the internet to even research. But he was, he found somebody in China to make clothing. He went to China. He had a deal with this guy who made clothes. It was just amazing, the stuff he did so young, and like you said, way ahead of his time.
Yeah, he just struck me as such an open-minded person, that he could see, honestly, like he was prescient. He could see the future. And if he were still with us, he would be one of those leaders that would be, taking charge of the medical marijuana, of the recreational marijuana usage, of hemp clothing, of hemp. I mean, I grew up in Kentucky, and the number one crop that was available for sale was tobacco, but it was very well known that the number one cash crop was marijuana. And I didn't, understand a lot about that when I was young, and I moved here, in my 20s. But when someone said something about hemp rope, I was like, what do you mean? Are you supposed to smoke that? Like, I had no idea all of the things that hemp could be used for. And now all of the things, all you can do is compare this time in our history to Prohibition in the 20s. where people made, alcohol and stills and had speakeasies, it was the same thing. It's taken decades for the rest of the world to catch up, but here Jeff was, I think, so far ahead of his time. So he opens a hemp clothing store. Was it, you said, was it Venice?
In Venice, yeah.
In Venice, California. And then does he decide, you know what, I think I'm going to start something bigger. I'm going to start Organica.
No, he went, actually, Jeff was always, he was so creative. So he decided he wanted to have a place where people could come and express themselves, be artists, stuff like that, musicians. So he rented this huge, huge warehouse right on the border of Marina del Rey and Culver City. Literally, and we can get to this later, there was a line by the city drawn through his building. This side is Marina del Rey, this side is Culver City. So that didn't matter at the time he was doing creativity.
Right.
Because there was nothing marijuana-related going on.
Okay.
It was just artists coming. There was couches. It was literally like a commune, like a hippie commune almost.
Right.
And there was apartments upstairs. Anyway, he just had people came and go. He had parties there. It was just a huge, big space. And then at some point in like 2006, 2007 is when he got the license from the state to open a collective, a dispensary there.
And that had to be tough because at that time, again, forward thinking, they weren't giving out that many licenses. It had to be tough.
No, there were only I forget the exact number, but it was maybe around 150 that were granted these licenses. And he was one of the, I don't know, he was number 7 or 8 on the list that was given a license.
So he had to probably jump through some hoops to get that.
Yes, he did.
So he's patient, and he's forward thinking, and he's willing to do the work to get done what he wants done for his vision. Correct. So he opens. Is it originally called Organica from the start? Okay.
From the start, yeah.
And it was separated into, like you said, there were apartments upstairs, and it was separated into part of it retail and part of it like a warehouse.
Okay. And so there was a front part that's on the street, and that was the storefront part, and that's the part that he made the collective, the dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
So patients weren't allowed, anywhere but that front area.
Okay. Was he growing anything there?
He was growing there, yes.
Is that, again, throwing back to my Kentucky roots, where I grew up, my street, Mills Road, was split in half by 2 towns. So right down the yellow line, I lived on the side that was Taylor Mill, and the opposite side of the street was Covington. And we had different zip codes and different towns, even though we were across the street.
Exactly.
So is his building, part of it being split by Culver City and Marina del Rey, was that part of the problem in that one city didn't want a grow operation?
One city did not want a collective there.
A collective, okay.
A dispensary, yes.
Right.
And that was not known until later on when we get to the raids and all that stuff. That's when that came out.
So he didn't even know.
He didn't.
He was following all of the guidelines to opening a collective and a storefront and live use, apartments upstairs. He was following all of the rules. He was integrating himself into the community, going to council meetings, wanting his business to be accepted and part of the community.
Wanting his business to be exactly legitimate. He had what he need, what the state. Listen, at that point he did exactly what the state of California required, what the city of Culver City or Marina del Rey, I don't know exactly which one the license fell under, but whatever city it was, he was doing exactly what was required to run a dispensary there. He was given a license to do this.
So I'm just trying to establish this is a guy who, while a creative free spirit, is also not some outlaw. He's right. He's
never had trouble with the law.
Exactly.
Ever.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to get to, is that he's not just some guy who decides, I think I'm going to open up something here and hope nobody finds me. He was public and did everything, crossed every T and dotted every I. He was that guy, but still had this wonderful, open-minded, creative bent, and saw all of the uses for hemp and for marijuana, and not just, for background for Cheech and Chong movies. He knew it helped.
No, let me preface this by saying what planted these seeds in Jeff's very young mind at the age of 20 was our dad in the hospital at UCLA, dying of leukemia in his 50s. And my dad telling Jeff that a friend or a family member, a friend's family member who also happened to be a nurse, gave him a little bit of marijuana. And it helped my dad's nausea.
Right.
That planted seeds in his very young mind way back then. Fast forward, 10, 15 years to the collective, and Jeff knowing the good. So Jeff knowing the good that hemp does and all the various uses for hemp. Why isn't, Jeff was not a big pot smoker. So he didn't really, the seeds were, what I'm trying to say is the seeds were planted very young, and they sprouted years later about, wow, smoking marijuana can really, there wasn't all the information that there is now about it helping cancer and blah, blah, blah. That wasn't out so many years ago.
Exactly. And it's new things every day. That's what I'm saying. He's like, I feel like Jeff is Nostradamus. Like, he was so far ahead. And whoever gave your father the small amount of marijuana and it helped, it's one of those things. It's so sad to me. And obviously a discussion about big pharma isn't for another time, but it's so sad to me, something that can be so helpful has been so maligned and unable to be distributed. And it's just, I'm sometimes shocked at the amount of ignorance about the subject matter. So here's Jeff, legitimate businessman, really legitimate businessman, and from his pictures, the cutest thing ever. I mean, he's just the cutest thing in the world. And he gets a horrible wake-up call from a raid because he was accused of distributing marijuana to someone underage, which, obviously I don't have any proof that this was some sort of a thing that one of the cities perhaps wanted to happen to make Organica go away, but it just feels like false charges at this point. Actually.
Yeah.
It just feels like it wasn't even a real thing, but something that, because I know when you open a collective, you have to be diligent about who comes in. And if they have the incorrect paperwork, that's on them, not you. You are checking everyone's doctor's recommendation.
I worked there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I know what the process was. I know what our procedures were.
Right. You knew firsthand about what he was doing and how he was handling his business. So that was a big blow. I'm sure he lost a lot of inventory and a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I guess did he have to let Organica go?
No. So he was raided 3 times.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So it was basically smash and grab.
Wow.
No charges filed.
Really?
No. The first one, no charges filed. So,
okay.
He lost a lot of inventory. He lost a lot of money. No charges filed. So he went ahead and reopened. No charges were filed. So why not reopen? He had the license to run this business. So Here's the thing. That was the biggest dispensary, the biggest collective, probably in the state of California, for sure in the Los Angeles area. it was so busy because of who Jeff was and knowing everybody in Venice, Santa Monica. I mean, not everybody, obviously, but very well known.
Right.
For first having creativity, having the hemp store, he was very well known. He was very involved in the medical marijuana community. He was featured in journals. There is a strain of marijuana called Jack Herrera. Jeff knew Jack. Jeff was at Jack's funeral. Jeff was very intertwined in that community.
Wow.
So the first raid, no charges were filed, so why not reopen? Why not reopen? Of course. So he reopened. And just kind of shooting off the hip here, I don't really have all the dates and timelines. I can tell you that was probably in 2008 or 9.
Okay.
No, probably 8. And then he was raided again in 2009. And this time the city came in and told him all these things he had to change and fix. And Jeff hired contractors.
Which city?
I want to say it was Culver City.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I didn't know which city was, more of a badass.
That's
Yeah.
ultimately who was the problem.
Okay.
Culver City.
Gotcha.
That makes sense because Marina Del Rey is actually city of Los Angeles, and I don't think they had as big of a problem with dispensaries as the smaller communities where they opened, like Culver City.
Wow.
Culver City became the nemesis for Jeff. That was the problem with Culver City. That's when they came in and drew the line. And when they drew the line through the building, the collective was on the Culver City side of the line.
Okay, that's what I was wondering if the partition of the building was part of the problem, like if Culver City was like, I don't want this on my part.
Yep.
And it was the collective, not the grow area. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So they raid him a second time. Again, no charges filed?
No charges filed.
And then the third time?
And at this point, Jeff's getting, how do I say it? I don't want to say an attitude, but kind of becoming rebellious.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
I'd be belligerent
to do this. Right.
Yeah.
Right. This time he lost more money. Had to replace more cameras, had to replace all the computers, all the stuff they took. And then the third one was February of, I want to say 2009. And that was the final one. And that's one where they finally filed charges. They arrested Jeff. They confiscated his car. I mean, there's so many things happened. Actually, the car was at a different time. So taking his brand new car was at a different time.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, everything was gone. They raided his house. He had a house in Topanga Canyon, so they raided his house and the collective this time. And this time I was there for that raid. So we literally had been open for about 5 minutes. We opened at 11 a.m. It was 11:05. There was only me and another guy there. Jeff wasn't even there. And I am not kidding. Of course, we had, locked doors. You had to buzz people in.
Right.
And I looked in the camera because I heard this bam, 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 bam on the door. And I looked in the camera and I saw just law enforcement everywhere. Everywhere in the parking lot.
Wow.
I didn't even have a chance to buzz them in. They kicked the door in.
Oh,
Guns
good.
out.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Guns out, everything. On the floor. We were on the floor for I don't know how long. But while they did everything, while they smashed cameras, why smash cameras if what you're doing is okay? Why are you smashing all the cameras?
Yeah, that's weird. I find that odd. Okay, so this is the third, and this time then Jeff is accused of selling marijuana to a minor?
Okay, so yeah, obviously it took time to get the charges filed. They did too much damage this time and took too much, and he couldn't recover from this one, and his spirit was just broken. Because you know how we all do jobs, well, the majority of us do jobs that we don't really like, we don't really love, but we all have to earn a living.
Right.
Jeff, truly, this was his calling. This was his love. He absolutely loved what he did. We had very sick people coming in. We had people with multiple sclerosis. We had people with AIDS. We had people with cancer, legitimate patients coming in that Jeff was helping. Jeff would stand there and make recommendations on specific ailments these people had and what strain would probably be best and all this stuff. And at this point, his spirit was broken.
So after the third raid, does he stay in California, or is this when he moves to Louisiana?
No, so probably a month after this happens, our mom, who wasn't in great health, has her on Mother's Day of that same year. So Jeff is trying to recover, gather his thoughts, figure out his next move, and our mom has her fifth and final devastating stroke.
And you and he move in to help her.
So I had already been living with her. So our plan is, okay, what are we going to do? This is our mom. What are we going to do? With all this other stuff Jeff's going through, he says, let's just rent a house and let's take care of Mom. Wow. We have to take care of Mom. We can't put her in a nursing home. We had visited a few nursing homes, and there was no way. And keep in mind, neither one of us had really any money at this point. You know, I was kind of staying home to take care of her because she had already had 4 strokes. So I was staying home. Jeff was going through all this. His source of income was gone. They took all the money that he had, you know, out of the safes and everything. So we were kind of destitute.
Wow.
So we rent a house so we can both be there with our mom. She's bedridden now. And as we're taking care of her through the course of what's left of 2010, Jeff's going to court. He's dragging my dear mother, who was, you know, not in good shape, but Jeff has all these court appearances. We're living in Oxnard. He's getting my mom ready, changing her diapers, showering her, getting her dressed, taking her to court with him because we had nothing. We had no resources to stay home. I had to work. Somebody had to take care of my mom. So Jeff's dragging her to court appearances with him because what are we going to do?
Oh, wow.
So he's juggling both. You know, I'm on shift taking care of my mom at night when I get home from work. Jeff's taking care of her during the day while I'm at work.
Wow.
It was probably the most trying time of both of our lives.
It would have to be. It would have to be, and yet you're both so amazing and strong and wonderful that you keep up this schedule.
We have to. It's our mom. What are we going to do?
Right.
So we do that, and Jeff goes to court. They end up, so they put, I think they charged him with 24 felonies.
Oh,
I can't even tell you what they all were. 24. They just threw 24 at him.
Right.
And ultimately 4 stuck. And he just pled no contest. He was done. He fired his lawyers. He was done.
Right.
They banned him from the industry. They, like you mentioned, they did accuse him of selling to a high school kid. And when Jeff demanded to know who that was and to have proof of that, where is your proof of that? Because we, like I said, we checked every recommendation.
Right.
We checked everybody's license. We scanned all of that information in.
Absolutely.
And this anonymous mom
Ah.
never came forward. We never got the information. Now, is it possible that somebody had a flyer from Organica? Sure. Could it have gotten into a high school kid's hands from maybe somebody dropped it on the street? Who knows?
Right.
We never got the answer to that.
But that's not enough to arrest someone.
No, and it wasn't for that, but that was something they threw out there. But that didn't stick because there was no proof of that ever.
That, yeah.
Never.
So
sounded good, though, for them. Sounded great.
Oh, yeah, it sounds phenomenal. It's a great thing to accuse people and ruin their life when you have, no proof. So how does he end up in Louisiana?
So Jeff had a girlfriend that was originally from Louisiana, New Orleans, and she also had a collective in Los Angeles.
Oh.
That ended up not working out, but no legal reasons
why,
behind it.
yeah.
No, not. It was not a legal thing. It wasn't like that. She migrated here after Katrina.
Okay.
So Jeff actually met her at the city council meeting.
Wow. So they're like-minded people, so that's nice.
Yeah. Right. And he ends up in Louisiana after our mom passes away in early 2011. And he's gone through all this court stuff, and he's like, you know what? I'm done.
I need a break.
Done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he ends up in Louisiana, and he starts is it a flag business?
Yeah. Yes, at the French Market.
Okay. And
let me just say this. We don't have to go into too much detail. Flags were not his life, they weren't his passion, but let me tell you something about Jeff. His girlfriend that he had at the time and I are still extremely close. I consider her a sister. I talk to her every single day. She is my family.
Good.
She is, there's not enough I could say about her.
You need each other now. That's great.
5 years later, she's still...
Well, that says a lot about him, and it says a lot about both of you.
She's an amazing person.
Yeah.
So they went back to New Orleans. She has a home there, and she said, you know what? It's time to go back. It's time for me to go back. You can come with me if you want to. What do you have left here, Jeff?
Right.
So Jeff goes to New Orleans. He starts a flag business, and he says, you know what? I'm going to redo the Mardi Gras flag. And Jeff changes the flag. So it takes a little while for this design to take off. And unfortunately, he didn't see the fruits of his labor because it really took off about a year after he went missing.
Oh.
You see this flag all over New Orleans now. It is everywhere. It's on Emeril's Restaurant.
Oh.
It's the Saints. I mean, it's everywhere.
It just shows you his creativity and his forward thinking. He's ahead of the time.
Yeah.
Again, ahead of the time.
Yeah.
So he's still living in Louisiana, but he decides to give California another shot?
No, not... Well, California's his home. This is where he's been all his life. Here is the part that's probably not going to sound great, but it is what it is. Jeff was on probation. So this is kind of a problem. So Jeff figures out, I'll just fly in once a month and check in. That's what he does.
Because he's not on probation for a violent offense. I'm sure there's things that, people do, let's just say people do a lot worse than that. So he's flying in. So how does he end up leasing some land in Humboldt County?
So banning him from the industry was like something that didn't sit well with him, of course.
Right, yeah.
Right. And he says, well, I'm just going to grow then. I'm just going to grow, and obviously if we're going to grow, we're going to probably sell it to someone. So at that time, was it illegal, and was he banned from the industry? Yes, he was. And was he, breaking the terms of his probation by growing? Yes, he was. However, at that point, he didn't care anymore. He leased some land in 2013 from someone, and Melissa, I don't have all the details. Jeff didn't give anyone all the details on everything. So a lot of this we've had to piece together because Jeff also did not want us worrying about him all the time.
Right.
So he didn't tell us all the details, which is why there's so many details about him going missing that we've had to just kind of figure out because Jeff didn't want us worrying. He didn't tell us.
And grown-ass adults don't tell their family members every step they take.
Exactly.
So,
I don't check in with my other brothers and tell them, hey, look, I'm doing this.
Right. I'm having lunch at 11:40, and then I'll probably go to the bathroom at 12:15. Your family doesn't know every step you take, and you're grown adults. You don't have to. Right. So he gives you an overview. This is what I'm gonna start doing now. Mm-hmm. Were you thinking, okay, that seems like this is a good step forward?
Well, I kind of didn't really think anything of it other than Jeff going up to Humboldt. I didn't know anything about Humboldt. I didn't know this violent, crazy history. I just knew that Jeff said it was beautiful, lovely. I should come up there. We could go gold mining or gold panning for gold.
Right.
All this great stuff. He wanted me and my husband to come up, and we never made it up there at that time, you know. But Jeff described it as like, you know, like one of the best places in the world. Like, you won't believe this place. So he leases one property for the grow season of 2013.
Right.
He grows for the first time. Jeff's not the best grower. There's no, he's just not. That's not his thing. He harvested the crop, and he did whatever he did with it.
Did he make any profit? Do you know?
A little bit, but the crop wasn't that good. I think that they harvested it too soon. It was still kind of wet. Some of it was moldy.
Gotcha.
It wasn't a great crop. So he was going to make 2014
the year
bigger,
bigger
better,
year.
And grow it properly.
So 2013 was like a learning curve year, but 2014 was going to be the rebound year.
It was going to be a much better crop.
Okay. So I'm, you know, again, just a little bit I know from Kentucky, and obviously weather conditions are different. The growing season is pretty long, like spring to fall.
Yeah.
So he has this about 80 acres he's leasing from the property owner, and there's a neighbor who's like the caretaker of the property.
Correct.
And she is friendly with the people who work the land for Jeff, but not exactly happy with Jeff because he doesn't live there full time.
Correct.
So she's like old school, like if you're not living, sleeping, eating, breathing, you're not a real...
it's the whole outsiders coming in, trying to profit, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
You know, mentality.
Right.
So Jeff had people there full time that he paid to be there.
Of course.
That agreed, that wanted to be there, that wanted to work for him. They had an agreement. So this year, 2014, Jeff has one of the same people, but the other two are different people.
Okay.
Okay, so one is from the prior season, from Louisiana.
From Louisiana. So is that Ben?
That's Hayden.
Hayden. Okay, so his friend he's known for a few years, Hayden, has stayed over from 2013 to 2014 to help with the new season.
So he goes home back to Louisiana after the season of 2013. He goes home, and when it's time for 2014, Jeff asked him to come back. He says, I will come back, but I'm bringing my friend Ben. Jeff says, I don't know this guy. I'm not comfortable with this. I don't want Ben here. Hayden says, well, then I'll go work on another farm. If Ben can't come, I'm not coming. So Jeff, being the little pushover that he was and needing Hayden, says, okay.
So both of those men and then another man?
And then the other man is Elliot.
Elliot? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that is Jeff's friend from Santa Monica, Venice area that worked at Organica.
Okay, so he at least knows 1.5 or 2 of the people that are on his property. He knows 2 of them fairly well, and one he's a little iffy about, but is vouched for from his other friend Hayden. So there's 3 of them on the property at the time, and he has like a loosely planned trip in June. He flies to Southern California to visit family, and he's staying with is it your uncle?
Mm-hmm. It was my uncle.
Okay, so he's in somewhere in the valley, like in the west
Chatsworth area,
valley.
yeah.
Okay. So he's staying with your uncle in the West Valley, San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles, and here's a question I have, and it may just be an ignorant question. I was unfamiliar with the geography of how far north Humboldt County is. I mean, it literally doesn't appear to be that much further south from Oregon or so. I mean, it's
very close to Oregon.
It's really close. I had no idea. I always thought of Humboldt County as being somewhat
Like
north
Bay
of San
Area.
Francisco. Yeah. I had no idea. So
How far?
is
Really
it because it's remote and there isn't a close airfield? Why would he drive?
I don't know. I don't know. That's what Jeff always did because he had to
Okay.
have his car with him.
Oh, okay. I was like,
And
could you not fly and get a
He
rental
was
car?
hauling some stuff up there, too.
Oh,
He was
okay.
bringing some stuff up there.
So,
Everybody's in place up in Humboldt.
Right.
Elliot, Hayden, and Ben.
and he stays with your uncle and drives his, is it 1998, 1999, 1998
Toyota.
RAV4,
Yeah.
drives it up there. Now, the fact that both items are missing is always a big deal for me, but I know you have pointed out it's such a vast area that you could dig a hole and put a car and a man in it, not just a man. And I know you've investigated this with cell phone pings, timelines, witness information. There's no way that with such a long trip that he could have fallen asleep and driven off the road?
No.
Okay.
And here's why. Jeff's phone last pinged in an area that could have put him at the last cell phone tower he would have hit before he made it up to his property, or would have put him also in the same general area where he was due to meet someone that morning.
Now, who was he due to meet?
Someone by the name of Chris Hunter. Somebody,
Oh,
and Jeff was very naive. Jeff believed everybody had the same intentions as him, that nobody was going to harm him. So Jeff was due to meet somebody that he met on Craigslist to buy little baby plants.
okay.
And they had met the prior month in May, and everything was fine.
So he'd
Him and
already met
Elliot.
this person, and he'd met this person.
Once, yes.
Okay. So this
And
wasn't
was
a
going to meet him again.
a brand new stranger thing. This was they had met before, and now they were going to meet a second time. Okay.
They were going to meet again, and this time it was a transaction
Right.
involving a lot of money and a lot of marijuana. So, yes, they were going to meet. And this person has confirmed that they were going to meet and has told PIs and other people that Jeff didn't show up.
Do you believe that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Where were they going to meet? Was it someplace that would have been secluded?
I don't know the exact location. I don't know if they were meeting in a parking lot. I don't know if they were meeting on the guy's property. I just know that the guy lives very close to Willow Creek, and that is where Jeff's phone, one of the second to last pings on his phone was in Willow Creek.
So Robert Christopher Hunter, Chris Hunter, had property there? I didn't realize that.
He has, I don't know if he owns this like trailer or something, motorhome kind of thing, in Sawyer. It's Salyer, Sawyer, California. Very small little town. It's actually, I believe it's Trinity County, which, is part of the Emerald Triangle.
Right.
And it borders like Willow Creek.
So
and Willow Creek is Humboldt.
Okay, so it's there's the county line maybe. So the second to last ping was close to that area, and they had a scheduled meeting. Chris Hunter's.
Jeff. I looked at Jeff's phone records. Jeff made a phone call that morning. He made 2 phone calls that morning. We've talked to both of those people that Jeff talked to. One was a friend in New Orleans. We have verified that he spoke to Jeff that morning. And then one was his friend William in Boston, and we also verified that William spoke to Jeff, and they spoke for like 15 minutes. And he told William, "I've driven all night. I drove all night. Whatever. Sorry about my grammar there. I drove all night. I'm sitting here just passing time, waiting to meet someone."
Okay.
Again, no specifics.
Right.
But he definitely verified and confirmed that he was waiting to meet someone.
So that's the morning of June 21st,
Correct.
in 2014. So
Right.
sometime in the late morning, he speaks to some friends and just explains, I'm waiting here to meet someone.
Early morning.
Oh, that's early morning. Okay.
Early morning.
So then the last known ping, a couple of hours later, who was that call to, or do we know? Or
There was
that's
no
just,
call. It was roaming.
It was a data, like the data dump. So they could say at like 11:20, he was here in this area.
Right. He was,
Okay.
His phone last pinged, eerily enough, off the Bloody Camp Tower in like Hoopa.
That's a great name, Bloody
Right,
Camp
Bloody
Tower.
Camp, right?
So now Hoopa is Indian territory?
I think partially. I've never gotten complete confirmation on whether it is, whether it isn't. Part of it is, for sure.
Right.
I don't know if all of it is. I've also never found out if the land that Jeff leased was on a reservation.
Okay.
I don't believe that it was.
Right.
But I can't get that confirmed. Oddly enough.
Would there be any chance that any sort of tribal police would have seen him or found him, or is there any chance that they're involved?
I don't know. I mean, as far as they have told us, they don't know anything. So.
Okay. It's fascinating. No one knows anything.
Right?
It is really interesting how no one knows anything.
Right.
So
Chris Hunter, years later, after he, when Jeff went missing, he was wanted for some violent felonies, armed robbery with intent to do whatever it is called, bodily
injury.
Something like that. I forget, but it was violent. There were violent offenses that he was wanted for. So he was on the run actually when Jeff went missing. And like 3 years later, they finally caught him, arrested him, supposedly questioned him, gave him what's called a VSA test.
Oh, the voice analysis?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
how'd that go?
Passed. Yeah. They said he passed it.
Which is, it's right. It pretty much says nothing. I hate to say it. And lie detector tests, I still don't even know why they're used except as a tool to intimidate someone. They're not, usable in court, and people who have failed them have been innocent, and people that have passed them have been guilty. So I don't even know, your voice analysis test, what are you going to tell from someone's, I don't even know why that's even a thing anymore. But okay, I hate to use the term junk science because I love all of these forensic tools that one can use to solve something, but I just find those almost annoying and offensive at this point in my life.
Right.
I don't know why you would hook someone up to a voice analysis. But so, Robert Chris Hunter, who could potentially be, a sociopath who could pass any test because they have no feeling or, so he passed his voice analysis test. So the investigators are somehow convinced that he has nothing to do with this, that Jeff just didn't show up for their meeting and he went about his merry way, breaking the law until they caught him?
Correct.
Yeah. Where did they arrest him?
Where did they arrest him?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I was like, did they find him in California or?
Oh, yeah, up there in that county.
Oh, okay, yeah. He was still there. All right, so
yeah.
I thought when you said on the run, I thought maybe he had actually fled to another state. So 3 years later, they arrest Robert Chris Hunter, who very well may be the last person who saw Jeff. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very well, maybe.
But there are other people who may have also.
Well, yeah, so it's a really long story. If I gave you all the details, we would be on this call for, it would take forever, but I'll just try and sum it up. So in doing the research and doing the digging around and all that stuff, we find out that Elliot went with Jeff the very first time to help load the plant. So when Jeff met Robert Hunter for the first time in May, Elliot was with him. So probably because we know Chris Hunter is a source in Humboldt to get plants and whatever we might need, the likelihood of Elliot being Jeff's right-hand man when Jeff's not there 3 weeks out of the month, and Elliot and Chris Hunter exchanging numbers, the likelihood of that is very high because
right. You need to get a hold of.
You need product, get a hold of this guy.
You need a local, yeah.
Right. My theory is this. Those two more than likely, may have been what happened to Jeff. Elliot won't speak, so I don't know. He won't talk. He was Jeff's friend. You would think that he would have talked to Jeff's family. He'd 5 years later be curious, like, my friend went missing. Gosh, I would be very involved with the family, especially if I was living on that person's property. But my theory is that those two may have been there waiting for Jeff, and because they both had something to gain. This is just my theory.
Okay.
Elliot could have said, you do the... I don't know. This is just... I'm left to guess because nobody will talk to me.
Understood.
So, Elliot had a farm with a huge crop that he had made into what it was, basically. Yes, Jeff supplied all the money for it to be possible, but Elliot was the one there every day making these plants thrive.
Right.
Okay, so I've got, that was going to yield a huge harvest. We will never know what that harvest was. We weren't allowed up on the property.
Jeff was going to pay Elliot for it. Isn't that Elliot was doing this out of the kindness of his heart?
Correct. Right. But get Jeff out of the picture, we can harvest the whole thing and sell it and get the profit. Chris Hunter, what did he have to gain? Well, Jeff had anywhere from, we don't know the exact amount, but anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 on him.
Okay.
So Chris Hunter has robbed his family for Disney DVDs.
Right.
How much more would he do to Jeff
right.
for $50,000 to $100,000?
Right.
Was Hayden involved? Was Ben involved? I don't know. That I don't know.
So Elliot did Elliot give any statement to the police?
No.
Okay. So the 21st, there's supposed to be a meeting. Doesn't ever happen. It takes...
he says it never happened.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, right. Allegedly. Allegedly didn't happen. Allegedly didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And it takes a week or so because Jeff is a grown adult and nobody has to keep track of where he's going. But it takes a week or so before someone realizes, hey, he's not back in Louisiana.
No, not back in Louisiana. No, he was going to drive back down to Southern California.
Okay. All right. So he was going to see your uncle again, and then he was going to fly back?
Right. He was going to come back to my uncle's house where he left, like his bag and stuff that he flew in with. And, duffel bag, clothing, stuff.
Sure.
He didn't take much up with him because he didn't plan on being there long.
Right. He wasn't going to stay.
Yeah, he wasn't there. He was there for maybe 24 hours. So what happened is my uncle, who has since passed away, he loved Jeff. He adored Jeff. So my uncle is texting me, hey, where's your brother? He's due back. He was due back on this date, which was like 5 days ago, 5 days prior to when we figured out Jeff was missing. And I said, I don't know where he is. You know Jeff. Plus, there's no cell phone service up there. I can't get a hold of Jeff. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not really thinking much of it because this is Jeff. This is his pattern. So I'm not thinking much of it when my uncle texts me the first time and says, where's your brother? I don't know. About 4 or 5 days pass, and my uncle texts me again. Where's your brother? I don't know, Uncle Lou. I don't know. After he said that, about a day passed, and I thought, this is odd. I'm at work. I text Jeff, and I can tell that it doesn't go through, that it's not delivered.
Right.
When you're iPhone to iPhone, it says delivered.
Yep. Right.
I know that. So, and I at that moment, I got a disgusting, sick feeling. And Jeff happened to have a phone on my cell phone plan.
Okay.
So, I'm at work. I log into my account. And at that moment, keep in mind, we're at the very end of June, maybe even July 1st at this point. And I look at Jeff's phone, and now if you knew Jeff's juggling 2 phones all the time. He's phone, 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 all the time on that phone, all the time. When I saw that it's now like July 1st, and Jeff has not touched a phone, he has not made a call, no activity since June 21st, I knew at that moment, like literally, I almost like passed out at my desk.
Right.
Like I had to walk out. I looked at my boss and I said, I have an emergency. I have to go. I knew that Jeff was gone. At that moment, I knew. There's no way. There's no way on this 10 days.
Right.
8, 9, 10 days with nothing.
Right.
There's no way. There's no way.
So do you immediately file a police report?
We immediately, my brother Dave works in the movie industry, and so he's in LA. So he goes to LAPD, and they say you have to file in the county where he lives. So at this point, Jeff's like, his last residence is Ventura County, so we file it with the Ventura County Sheriff.
Oh boy.
They transfer it to LA. Because technically, that's where Jeff was last seen.
Where he left from, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it ends up with the LAPD, who then transfers it to Humboldt, and they get it. So it's kind of actually in both. It's LAPD has it, and so does Humboldt.
Right. So they both consider it an open active case?
I guess.
Yeah. So there's a missing persons report, and I have to say, I mean, anyone can go missing, and one of the things that bothers me, and I didn't realize it until probably in my 40s, that there's the white woman syndrome. If you're a young, attractive white woman, they'll look for you. And if you're anyone else, you can pretty much go fuck yourself. And
you're right.
So here's a a man in his 40s who is a good, decent human, but some people would be judgmental and say, well, here's a guy who's, trying to grow marijuana, and it's still, even 5 years ago, it still had bizarrely, in certain circles, a stigma attached to it, even though I just keep praying that will, and I know as time goes on, it'll be less and less, but still a businessman who owns, or leases property, who's doing, I don't understand why Jeff's case wasn't highlighted as a big damn deal. I mean, your theory that Elliot and Robert Chris Hunter knew each other and potentially got together is probably the most solid one, considering it's been looked at. Could he have driven off the road? Could he have ended up in a river? The 1998 RAV4 had shitty brakes on a recall.
But we have the tower pings. The CHP gave the tower pings. I know exactly where he was. Well,
and honestly, in 2014, they were very good, and I bet you in 2019 they could even get a better pinpoint, like probably exactly the part of the road that he was either pulled over on or that he was on his property.
Right.
I just the secretive nature of Humboldt is odd to me. It's very backward and strange to me that people don't talk. And if you have nothing to hide, snitches get stitches is, we're not talking about gangland shootings from Mexico, or maybe we are. I mean, I don't really know. But the fact that people that live there, you would think maybe they're all suspicious of law enforcement. Maybe they all are. But I wouldn't want to live there knowing that someone who is not doing bad things, who is not a threat, who is not, is not trying to cheat anyone out of anything, but doing, trying to make a goddamn living and employ other people to give them a living. Why they can be disappeared and no one's talking.
No one gives a shit.
I think people think, no, you can say anything you want here. I feel like people give a shit. I don't know what they give a shit about. I don't know what their priority is, what's important to them. And maybe there is a fear factor. Maybe it's a fear-based, I can't talk because I'll be offed by someone else. But one thing I can tell you, if there's more than one person involved, I actually feel like that's a better scenario, because one person can keep shit to themselves. Wherever two or more are drawn together in this sort of awful shit, somebody's going to break. Somebody's going to talk. Somebody's going to get drunk or stoned or something and say something. And it may take a ridiculously long time, which 5 years is already too long. I'm still a little stunned. But then again, I'm stunned that there's been no charges brought against the man who obviously killed Garrett Rodriguez. I feel like if that's not going to get prosecuted, how are we going to, find whoever did whatever to Jeff? I mean, are you still getting messages from law enforcement that they think he just walked away from his life, which there would be absolutely no reason for him to do that? But do you still get any sort of, where they're trying to pacify you and say, we just think he walked away?
No.
Good. Okay. So at least law enforcement.
They changed it to from missing, like voluntarily missing, to missing under suspicious circumstances. Now, I had to ask for that.
Okay.
But they did do it.
Okay.
And
well, that's something.
Not that has done anything for me or for Jeff.
Right. Right, it's nothing. A classification, right? But at least it's like maybe a tiny, tiny little bit of like, okay, at least we got that step taken care of. It's not Jeff didn't walk away from his life.
Right, so here is kind of like where it all kind of sits really bad with me. So let me just back up a little bit and tell you. So Chris Hunter gets arrested. He does his time in jail. Maybe it's 8 months, whatever, something. And this person who's like just somebody I just see on the internet, like if I do a search and whatever, not somebody I've ever had contact with, no communication with. Like I'd say about a year and a half ago, maybe about a year ago, this is what he said, okay? This is, to me, big. He had done his time in jail and supposedly was trying to clean up his life and, fix his damaged reputation and all that. So he knows that people think that he had something to do with Jeff going missing because it's blasted all over the internet. It's in Facebook groups up there, his wanted poster, blah, 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 blah. All we wanted to do was talk to him in the beginning. He wouldn't talk. He was on the run. That's why he says he wouldn't talk. So he gets arrested. He does his time. And Jeff had a PI on his case early in the beginning. His name is Jeff Kaplan. For whatever reasons that, I'm not going to get into here. No bad reasons. We just there was nothing else he could do. So, but his name is still out there attached to missing flyers. So Chris Hunter goes online and Googles whatever he Googles, and he pulls up a missing flyer that has Jeff Kaplan's phone number on it. And he reaches out to him and says he wants to clear his name. And he had nothing to do with Jeff going missing. And he gives a statement to this PI, who does this for me at, doesn't charge me, just out of the goodness of his heart, takes a statement from him. And Jeff Kaplan asked him, do you know Elliot? And he says, no, I have no idea who that is. I don't know anybody that Jeff was dealing with. That Jeff worked with. I don't know anybody. Jeff called me the night before and said, is it okay? Is it too late if I come tonight? Well, that's not anywhere on Jeff's phone records. Anywhere. He did not call him the night before. Ever. We had both of Jeff's phones and both of his records. Not the physical phones, but the records.
Right.
He did not call him the night before. After that, and I'm not going to use this person's name, but she's like an investigative journalist, she talked to Chris Hunter and got a statement from him as well. This time he says, yeah, when Jeff and I met the first time, he brought his friend Elliot. Now keep in mind, this is within 48 hours that he gave two different stories.
Right.
So which one is it?
And the first one was with Jeff Kaplan?
Yes.
And then the second one was with the investigative journalist?
Yes. And I have both of those documents. Both of them transcribed the conversation. I have both of them. They've been given to law enforcement. Nothing's been done. Elliot, in the very beginning, was questioned by the first PI. He said, I don't know anyone that Jeff was dealing with. I didn't get involved in that side of the business.
Ah, he was just down on the farm doing the work?
Right. He
Yeah,
didn't get
yeah.
involved in that.
Uh-huh. He knew nothing. A very small group of people, but he knew zero that Jeff was doing or anyone that he spoke to. Okay.
Right. So then when Jeff went missing, we were on Elliot. On him. Like, why are you not combing the streets? You're Jeff's friend. Why are you not doing anything? And the only person he would talk to and respond to was my brother Dave. That's it. That's the only person he would respond to.
What do you think the reason was?
I don't know. I must have texted him probably and tried calling him probably, I don't know, a couple hundred times over the course of months.
Did he
Never.
say anything to Dave that was of interest?
No. In fact, he said that he would harvest the crop.
Right.
And he would give Dave or the family or whatever Jeff's share.
Jeff's share of his own crop.
Exactly. So, oddly enough, this person ends up buying a house. This is a broke kid. And believe me, Jeff's not paying these people
$1 million a day, yeah.
Right.
I get it.
So now this person owns a house that he has paid cash for.
After Jeff goes missing.
Yeah, the next year.
And he refuses to speak to police?
Well, I wouldn't say he refuses. They have never attempted to talk to him. I think one time they drove to Oregon and kind of waited around. They went to his house, and he wasn't there, and then they left. That's the story I was given by law enforcement, and that's about as far as they've gone with trying to talk to him.
Well, that seems very productive. So they do a voice analysis test on Robert Christopher Hunter, and they do 0 on Elliot Storms.
Right, and they only did that on Robert Hunter because they already had him in custody.
Right. And the other people that were working on Jeff's leased land,
they're in Louisiana. They're not.
they didn't talk to them.
No.
All did any of the people on Jeff's land say he made it to the property that day?
Nope. They said he didn't show up.
So he didn't make it to his own property, and he didn't make it to his meeting with Chris Hunter.
No, but his phone certainly did.
Right. Well, isn't that interesting? I do have to say I'm stunned, and maybe it's pieces of information that law enforcement is keeping to themselves, but I'm stunned that there's no reporting.
He didn't make it anywhere. He didn't make it anywhere, but his phone did.
Right, sure. I'm stunned that law enforcement doesn't have more information on statements from Ben and Hayden and Elliot. If all three of them were on the property, what about the neighbor? Did Holly see Jeff make it to the property?
Nope.
Okay. Fantastic.
Nope.
So,
Holly didn't like Jeff. She made that very clear. And according to her, he never made it. So my uncle and my brother drove up there. Like 2 days after we realized Jeff was missing, they gathered their things together, got prepared, and drove up there. They got a hold of Elliot. Actually, no, wait. I think Elliot was out of town. So they got a hold of Holly, the caretaker, the neighbor, and she was out of town in San Francisco. And they said, well, we're going to go up to the property. I don't know where Elliot was. If they couldn't reach him at the time or whatever. She said, if you cross the gate, because there's a gate leading up to the mountain.
Of course there is.
You cross the gate, you will be shot.
Who's there to shoot? Do you know?
There's about 4 other people that live on that mountain.
Okay.
You go up on that mountain, you'll be shot. So, of course, we don't want to lose a couple more family members.
Exactly.
So they decide not to cross the gate.
Right.
And keep in mind, I mean, my Uncle Lewis, he passed away 2 years after Jeff went missing, and all the while battling cancer and driving his motorcycle up there and just raising hell everywhere he went up there, screaming and yelling in the local little market, screaming and yelling of these people, are keeping secrets, they know who killed his nephew. I mean, just raising hell. And damn, the fact that he's gone. I mean, he was a crusader for Jeff,
That's one less soldier, but there's still a lot of people that are keeping Jeff in the forefront of their mind. So according to everyone who was there, a 45-year-old, 6'2", 200-pound man evaporated along with his car. It just evaporated.
Yeah, right.
And no other, like his phone hasn't been found, nothing.
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. And there's no, he could have made it up to his property. There's a few things that could have happened. He could have met with Chris Hunter that morning.
Right.
It could have all ended there. He could be buried somewhere around there. I have no idea.
Right.
He could have gotten Chris in his car and said, let's go up to the property. It could have all taken place up on that property.
Right.
But according to law enforcement, you cannot just search private property.
Right.
You have to have a search warrant. And getting a search warrant, you have to have probable cause. And if this isn't probable cause, then I don't know what it is.
I don't. I do.
Yeah.
That's another thing I just do not understand.
See,
Right.
and this is just the thing that when you watch the documentary Murder Mountain, and I hear the frustration in all of this, and I'm getting frustrated as I listen to it. But what's clear to me as just listening to this is what I got when I watched the documentary, and that is the reason nobody says anything is that the entire culture up there, whether you're a law-abiding citizen, whether you're involved in the industry, the entire culture in that area is keep your mouth shut. Because it doesn't matter if you're helping somebody or not. The perception, even if you're not involved, if you know something and you say something, you're violating this code and you will get killed. And the problem with the police is they will not investigate because probably there is money going to the police. That's the unspoken thing that nobody wants to come out and say. The way that the police behave up there is so, it's kind of a weird passive aggressiveness that is just, it's kind of like they're waving their hands in the air as if they're doing something, but nothing is getting done. And it's got to be because of graft. There is no other explanation that makes any sense, because any other law enforcement agency in any other part of the world would be far more aggressive with this many disappearances that happened up there. Your story, this frustrating, horrible story, our audience should know this, is one of hundreds, and it just never ends. And it's a really frustrating, and I feel terrible for you, Vicki. This is just a horrible story. But until something is done about the root cultural silence that goes on up there, I don't know what the answer is.
I don't think that, what you just expressed, you expressed it better than I ever could. I don't think there is ever going to be an answer, and I don't think that area is ever going to change.
How?
There's so much other shady stuff, too, you guys, that we probably don't have time to get into with the first PI and the stuff that happened and the stuff that she did to me. Horrible. And she's part of that culture up there. She's a former detective.
Right.
And I'm not bashing law enforcement because let me tell you what, like Mark just said, like any other law enforcement agency, I can tell you right now, they're on it. They're looking for these people.
Right. So, Vicki, I don't know what to say other than we're keeping Jeff in our highest thoughts, and we will put every contact number in our show notes for the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department, for the Facebook page, Jeff's Facebook page that you maintain. Is there anything else that you want to tell or talk about that we can do to help find Jeff?
I have current flyers on his Facebook page. If everybody can circulate those flyers, with the Humboldt County Sheriff's phone number on them, That would be wonderful.
How do we find your Facebook page, Vicki?
It's so Jeff's Facebook page is Help Find Jeff Joseph, and that is kind of where I post anything, any updates, anything like that, which isn't very often anymore, but I do maintain it. So,
I'm an only child, and I loved being an only child, but if I had a sister, I would want her to be you. And if anything ever happened to me, I would want my sister Vicki to be what you are. You're amazing, and you've become a lot of things. You've become your own investigator, your own private investigator, your own police force, your own search and rescue. You've taken on probably 10 different jobs, trying to you've been publicity, PR. You've done it all, trying to keep Jeff's story in top of mind, and we're going to hopefully help with that too. And we really thank you for being with us, taking the time. And if there's ever any updates, anything you want us to put out there about Jeff and the case, please know we're always going to be here, and we'll hopefully be able to come up with some really good answers to what happened. And if anyone has anything that they want to tell us, you can always call us here. You can always email us here, and we'll leave that information at the end. But thank you so much for taking your time, Vicki.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
We really want to thank Vicki Joseph for taking time to talk to us today and keeping Jeff Joseph's case in the front of our minds. It's an important thing to bring someone home, hoping it never happens to you or anyone you know, and that is a hole that can never be filled. And even though there's no such thing as closure, we can always hope that there's something that solves this and brings peace of mind to Vicki and to the Joseph family. And if you have any information, if you know anything, please call the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office at 707-445-7251. You can call the Humboldt County Anonymous Tip Line at 707-268-2539, and more cowbell.
And remember, if you've got a tip for Melissa, give us a call at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com.